First of all, thank you for having me out here today. Like I said, my name is Randy Rodgers. Like I told the administrators yesterday, I do apologize in advance for those that thought they were going to get to see a country western show today. The 10 of you that are fans got that. I appreciate that. Of Randy Rodgers Band. And I also told them that it was bad enough growing up the son of, yes, my dad's name was Roy. So, and then you go in the classroom, and of course you're Mr. Rodgers. And I'm working on my PhD just so I can leave all that behind and be Dr. Rodgers for the rest of the time. I'm sure some television show is going to show up at some point that'll run it, and it'll be Dr. Rodgers, MD, or something. Well, I'm going to get you guys to do some interactivity on this presentation today. If you have any kind of mobile device on you, that includes a smartphone. And if you would go to this website, gosoapbox.com. GoSoapbox is a really cool site. It's free. It lets you create ways to get feedback from classes, from groups. You know, if you're having a faculty meeting, you can an administrator could get feedback from the group using this. Using whatever mobile devices that you have. You can actually get to it, of course, from a computer if you had a laptop or something like that. But if you'll go to GoSoapbox, enter the event code Tech Tuesday. There's some things on there, and you'll be able to give some input and feedback and things like that. There's a couple of polls, and we'll get to those at the end. We'll talk about your results and the answers that you put on there. Okay. It has a polling tool. You can create polls. You can also well, I'll just show you what it looks like. Well, everybody get logged in first, but it has the ability to just post open-ended discussion questions, but it also has the opportunity tool for students to post their own questions. And then what's cool is those questions are socially graded in a sense. If I look on there and somebody has a good question, I can plus it and bump it up in the list. And if, you know, Susie sitting next to me sees another question that she likes, she can plus it and bump it up in the list. And then as a teacher, I can get on there and look and say, well, these are the questions that the class rated as the highest and the most important. I'll address them first and things, and get to the most important needs. Or the ones that I know, because they got bumped up, probably half the class has the same question. It's a really cool tool. It's easy to use. The interface is extremely easy to use. So it's GoSoapbox. I'll show you kind of what it looks like from my end. See, I would see this. It also has this little thing that's called a barometer, so that as you're going along in class, if you're teaching a concept and you're just dazzling and everybody's getting it, they're going to check this little thing that says, we get it, and you'll get this little graph that tells you everybody gets it, and that was your best day, and the kids left there with the ability to pass the stars with exemplary scores and so on. So this is the poll. Here's some discussions for you to participate in, and you may have to wait till later on in the presentation to actually answer those, because we'll learn more about the concepts that are on there, okay? And this is where the audience can add their own questions. So we'll come back to that as the day goes on. And I have used it, today this presentation, this came up at the end. This is a site called Prezi.com, and some of you may be familiar with Prezi. It's Prezi.com. It's a really fascinating little tool. It's similar to a PowerPoint, but it's easier on the eyes. It does some really pretty stuff. It puts everything on one screen, but then it uses zooms and panning and things like that to get to the parts that you want. Kids love it. They love working on it. It has some advantages over PowerPoint in that they can collaborate on it. I don't know if you can see, but down at the bottom there's a little button that says Edit Together. One student can create a Prezi, invite someone else to edit it with them so they can collaborate on the project. You can embed Prezis into websites, like if you have, like he mentioned SchoolWires, who's not here. We use SchoolWires in our district, and teachers will embed their Prezis or their kids' Prezis in their teacher class website. So it's pretty amazing tool. It has a social aspect that people can comment on presentations, ask questions, things like that as well, so kids can ask questions about one another's presentations. So we're going to go through, in fact, I don't want to do I'm going to go to the edit screen just because I don't want to go full screen because we're going to cover a lot of ground. What we're going to look at today is how we use classroom technology, and specifically, like, is anybody else's district really big on the word rigor right now? Grief, is that the word of the week or what? And I'm not belittling it because it's actually really quite valuable. It's just the latest term for something that I think we've all found important for a long time. But I know in my district, I work in Birdville ISD, which is in a town that doesn't exist. I mean, Birdville is not an actual town anymore. Birdville is a Haltom City these days, North Richland Hills. It's outside of Fort Worth. We are a district, we have 31 campuses, about 22,000 kids, and I work with the teachers. My job is to work with the teachers, helping them to use technology in the classroom effectively, because one of the things they realized a few years ago is that we had millions of dollars worth of stuff that was primarily being used as a reward after work was done or to play Math Blaster. And they decided that probably wasn't the most efficient use of millions of dollars worth of technology, so they hired a bunch of us and gave us the task of, now go figure out how to use it better. And so I have the coolest job in the world. I get to play with all kinds of cool toys. I get to work with teachers all over the district. I get to work with their kids. But I don't have to grade their papers. I don't have to meet their parents. The homework I have is like research. I go home and, hey, let's find some new websites tonight. I do have a wonderful job. It's phenomenal. I'm really blessed. And I've been doing this job for 10 years, but this is my 21st year in education. Greg, you can't understand people that have taught 20 years in education. I know. I used to think that meant we were really, really old. Yeah. I believe that's true, but I'm more and more. All right, today's talk is called the Classroom Technology Food Chain, and you'll see a lot of different things used to talk about the way technology is used. There'll be continuums or pyramids or things like that. Well, I used to teach 6th grade science, so food chains were part of my vocabulary. So I had to put it in the vocabulary of something I know and was familiar with. So I'm going to use food chains. And what I want to look at today is when we use technology. And specifically, one of the things that we really try to target with our teachers and get them to do is get to the point where technology use is not an event. How many of you, you don't have to raise your hands, okay? This is not true confessions or anything, but the only time your kids really get to use technology is when it's your day in rotation on Thursday, and you go to the lab, and you do the activities that the lab person has in mind, or whatever, and we have a lot of schools that have a rotation in the lab. The EA might do something like learning.com, or she might do something better, but, again, don't confess, but would any of you, I can tell by some faces that some people have guilty consciences on that. But yeah, that's what we wanted to do, is try to get past that, where it's not an event, where they don't see it as, oh, it's tech time. But where using technology is so routine that it becomes, not ho-hum, but it just becomes expected. The whys that we use technology. Let me just ask you that. Let me put that to the floor. Why do you think, or why do you try to use technology with your kids? What are some benefits? Why should we do that? It's fun. The word we have to use now is engaging. We don't have fun. It's engaging. Yes.
Practical application of what they're learning.
Practical application of what meaningful. We have to say that. Yes, yeah, that's right. Those are perfect answers. What else? Why do you use technology with your kids?
What they're used to. It's their world.
Oh, that's very good. Yeah, have y'all ever heard the term digital natives? That we're digital immigrants because we're old, and our technology was Atari and theirs is Xbox 360, so they know more. Yeah, so it's where they already are. And what was the one that was over here? That was worth up to date. Very good. And that's really, you hear the term 21st century skills all the time, right? That's another one of our buzzwords that's thrown out all the time. But it's important, because what those are people that study this stuff more than us are saying these are the skills that our kids are going to need to succeed. And I've never read any of them that said they don't need to read, they don't need to write, they don't need to do computations, they don't need to know history, but they said there's other skills that they're going to need if they're really going to thrive in the workplace. Things like communication, the ability to work with others, maybe even other cultures, the ability to use technology intelligently and to be media literate. So those are all great answers. Those are perfect whys, so we don't have to cover that. We'll just skip that. Y'all know why. All right, so what we're going to talk about is the how for the most part today. We're going to talk about the how we use technology, and I'm going to give you a lot of resources, and let me give you a heads up. I will give you a link to this presentation, a short little link, so you don't have to write down every website that we go through and stuff as we go, because I will probably cover more ground than you want to try to keep up with on writing them down. So just save yourself, and if you want to write down a few notes, things that maybe you especially like, but don't try to keep up with everything. I'll make it easy on you, I promise. In fact, I'll tell you the URL if you want to. It's prezi.com. I'm sorry, no. tinyurl.com. tinyurl.com/techfoodchain. Tech food chain. Okay? All right. First, I want to share with you something called the Technology and Learning Spectrum. Several years ago, I got to go to a meeting at our service center, as a matter of fact, with an educator by the name of Dr. Bernadine Porter. And this was early on in my career as an instructional technology specialist. And one of the things that meeting did was, well, first of all, it really depressed me, because she described this learning spectrum, and the types of things kids are doing with technology, and I realized, oh, dang it, we're at the bottom of that spectrum for the most part, or maybe in the middle on good days, and we wanted to be at the higher end. But the good thing is, this spectrum challenged me to look at how it's using technology and ramp it up a notch. All right. At the lowest level, Dr. Porter describes literacy use of technology. Now, literacy, by the way, all these drawings were done by my finger on the iPad. Autographed copies, maybe, or prints, we'll see, available. Basic computer skills and technology literacy. If you look at something like, some of the software that's used in some of our lab. In our lab, we use a piece of software called learning.com. There's nothing wrong with basic computer skills and technology literacy. In fact, they're very important. And if you look on lists of 21st century skills, that's always listed there. You got to have some of those basic skills. So understand there is extreme value in that. But as far as technology use, that's at the bottom, okay, of the hierarchy. I'm going to slide this over here. All right. The next level is adapting. And adapting is where most teachers, I find, that I've worked with over the years reside. What they're doing is they're adding, they take technology, they take an existing activity, and they try to teach it with a technology piece. Okay? And it becomes, why I use the word substitution up there, Dr. Porter talked about something that it just takes the place of pencil and paper. But you can still do it with pencil and paper. Has anybody ever done this activity? Then, again, it's not a confession, you don't have to raise your hand. This is from my own archives of activities with students. I would say, okay, you guys are doing Mercury, okay? You've got Venus, you've got Mars, Pluto, sorry. I just aged myself as a science teacher. Forget Pluto, okay? Y'all do Jupiter. All right. And poor Pluto. That's so sad, isn't it? I just threw myself off so bad. Okay. And what we're going to do is we're going to go to the lab today, and your group is going to research your planet. And you are going to create a PowerPoint slide that has these facts and this amount of information and at least 2 pictures, or maybe not a slide, but a presentation on your planet. And then you're going to share it with class. Anybody ever done, oh, no, again, don't raise your hand. But in your mind, anybody ever done anything like that with your kids? Now, is there anything wrong with that activity? No, there's nothing wrong with that activity. However, it's still at a pretty low level because couldn't I have done everything I just described without a computer? You could, yeah, with encyclopedias. I could go to the library and have them check out books about the planets. We could get poster board and make posters about the planet. Now, there's lots of ways we could do that without the technology, right? Again, there's nothing wrong with that, but that's still, we got to understand, that's still mid-level application of technology. That's not a high-end application of technology, okay? All right. And again, I know when I came into this job, and actually the first year in this job, that's what I was working with teachers to do. I thought that's how you use technology. So there's nothing wrong with that. There is, but once I saw the presentation, I was like, oh, we can do more. The last level is transforming. And what transforming is, it's high-level learning. It involves real-world problems, problem solving, and it's technology-dependent, meaning you're doing something that you could not do without the technology. It's not possible. I'll give you an example. Some of you may have heard of the Flat Classroom Project. Anybody ever heard of this? Now, this is an impressive, big type thing. And one of the things I always tell my teachers is you don't have to think like that one. But if you do, that's good. But what this is a project that every year connects multiple high schools from schools all around the world. I mean, I know Qatar and I want to say Indonesia and exotic locations like Georgia have been involved in this. And they do collaborative projects. And it started out, the first year they did the project they were studying the book The World is Flat by Thomas Friedman. High school kids, obviously, if you've ever seen the book, we're not talking about a third grade class doing that. And they paired up with partner students in other classes around the world, created content projects to illustrate the concepts of this book and how they apply to their own cultures. Now, that's pretty hard to do with pencil and paper. Now, technically it's not impossible as long as you've got a month to wait for each letter to get to them and back, and things like that. But what it allowed them to do is use things like a wiki to put all their material together and communicate with one another. They use things like Skype to visit with one another and talk with their group projects. They used YouTube to post their videos to share with the rest of the audience, and things like that. So again, technology enabled a project that without those tools wouldn't have been possible. Not practically possible, right? So that's something. Now, again, that's a real high level, but probably every one of you in here can name something you've done with your kids that you can say, we could have never done that if I didn't have this. 10 years ago, we could not have done what we just did. Okay? That's where we're at transforming level. Will all of our technology used to be at that level? Well, in a dream world, in some kind of utopia, yes, and we'll all have the latest brand new laptops and everything will be, the Wi-Fi will be the fastest ever and it'll be free to everyone. But the reality is, no. But what that does tell us is, and what Dr. Porter was saying is that's where we need to try to be shooting with our projects as much as in the ways we use technology on a daily basis, things that we couldn't do otherwise. Okay? That's food chain number one. Any questions or comments or complaints or? Okay? All right. The next thing that we're going to look at is Bloom's taxonomy. And this is where we're going to get real site intensive. I'm going to cover a lot of ground here. Anybody there's nobody in the world that works in education that's not familiar with Bloom's taxonomy. But is there anybody that has never seen the revised Bloom's taxonomy? It's been out a while now. It's been out for, 15 or 20 years. But it did, its predecessor was so entrenched. There's not a whole lot that they've changed, but I do like what they added at the top. I'm going to go through this, and I'm going to share a bunch of sites that apply to this, and some other resources at the end of it where you can find even more. Anybody ever heard of Kathy Schrock? Some yeses. Kathy Schrock is real big on discoveryeducation.com. She has a lot of materials on there, and Kathy is just great. She finds really cool ways to connect things. If you search for Kathy Schrock, Bloom's taxonomy, she has a couple of pages, and Schrock is S-C-H-R-O-C-K. S-C-H-R-O-C-K. She has a couple of really cool interactive pages, and you can even submit things to them, where she's got like Bloom's Taxonomy and iPad apps. And she'll have iPad apps arranged according to where they would fall in the Bloom's Taxonomy. She also has one that does the same thing with Google Apps. Google Docs. So she has those arranged according to how they can be used in the Bloom's Taxonomy. They're really nice interactive features. So those are a couple of good resources. Mine's going to go a little different, but let's start. At the basic level, the little dandelion here is remembering. Okay, that's what has become what it used to be called. It used to be called. It wasn't called remembering. What was it called? Recall. Thank you. Recall. But it's the same basic idea. Here's some verbs that describe actions that kids would be able to do at this level. Define, duplicate, list, memorize, recall, repeat, or reproduce a state. And as we go into these, let me also mention, just like with the spectrum that I showed you before, is it realistic, or is there value at every level of the taxonomy and at every level of activity? Yeah. I mean, do kids need to recall their multiplication facts? Yeah. Absolutely. Do they? I mean, there's a lot of things that they have to just know. They have to know how to spell. So, although less and less, now we've got so much correcting our spelling. Thank goodness. Yeah, so just understand that even though I call this a hierarchy, it is in terms of maybe cognitive load and the type of the challenge of the work that kids are asked to do, but it doesn't mean that they're not all valuable. All right, here's some sites that work at this level, and I'm going to show you a few of these. Quizlet is a flashcard site, and they have thousands upon thousands of flashcards that people have made and shared there. They're digital flashcards. You can create your own flashcards and share a link with your class and say, if you want to study for tomorrow's social studies test, here's some flashcards to help you study, things like that. But this is what are flashcards for? They're just recall, right? But again, we've all used those. Everybody, I mean, most of us wouldn't have gotten through college without flashcards, our little self-made ones. So absolutely, they're a valuable thing. This is called Quizlet. You can browse other people's flashcards on there and maybe save yourself some time. You can do it by subject. Let's see if I can find one. Excuse me. Pick a subject. Somebody tell me a good. Spanish. Good. Made me have to pronounce things. Let's see what we get when we search Spanish. Spanish 1, adjectives. All right. Oh, good. They haven't had the answer on the front. Alto. Tall. Bajo. Short. Simpático. I just saw Puss in Boots. All right. Another one that was on that list is something called X Timeline. Now, there's a bunch of different tools on there. On the web for creating timelines online. But there's different. You can amp up timelines certainly, but at their most basic, timelines are a recall level device or remembering level tool or strategy, because they put things in the order that they happen. And timelines are great for every single subject under the sun. They could be used for art, to make an art history timeline. They could be used for social studies, obviously, to make a timeline of events for any specific theme that you have. They can be used for science. I used to have my kids make timelines in science of their observations of a lab. Draw it out as a timeline. Literature works fantastic as a timeline. Okay, so timelines are very easy to use. I don't know. Here's one on the Roman Republic. that someone has made. The one thing about the this timeline tool is you can inject, you can put media in it, like images and video. And here's one, and you can add, like the Roman Republic was the phase of the ancient blah, blah, blah. And this is just a pretty generic one here, but still, one of the things that's cool about this, again, is you can collaborate on it. Like I showed you some of the other tools. You can share it with others and allow them to work on it. You can also share it with others, and they can write questions and ask. So a teacher or other students could review one another's timelines, ask questions, clarifying questions, make comments, insights that they gained by watching it, and so on. So that's X timeline. There's no shortage. Dippity is another one that you can do timelines on. There's tons of timeline tools available out there. It's becoming a very popular resource. Anybody use Spelling City with their kids? Yeah, a bunch of you. Good. Since I have two little kids, I have a second grader and a fifth grader. Little. They used to be little. And they both, since kindergarten, have had teachers that would tell them to use Spelling City with their spelling lists and stuff like that. It's a real simple site because you can just go, and if you've never used it, you don't have to do anything with it. You give the kids their spelling list and say, go home and put your words in Spelling City, or go to the computer over there in the corner of the room, put your words in Spelling City, and it does the work for you. It creates games, puzzles, practice tests, things like that for spelling. Again, we're right at the first level of Bloom's, but a nice use of technology there. And Carrot Sticks is a kind of a semi-competitive, in a fun way, math facts practice page, and it rewards speed and accuracy, and it has a social element where you compare yourself to other people and things like that, and it's a lot of fun. It's more fun than probably just traditional sitting down. My son, he's in second grade, so he's working on addition and subtraction facts, and every night he has to do his little time. He gets the iPhone out, starts the timer, and does all his facts, and he's really good, by the way. Yeah, takes after his mother. All right. The next level of Bloom's, understanding. Understanding asks kids to do some things like you see here, hit some of the highlights: classifying, discussing, explaining, identify, locate, report, translate, paraphrase. Paraphrase is a really challenging thing for kids, isn't it? And so, yeah, we know. If you look at that's for years has been a bugaboo, that whole, because I think I would put it along there with paraphrases like summarize, things like along that in the tax test. I know in our district that's been one of the most challenging things to get kids to be able to do. And the best way to do it is just give them many opportunities to summarize things. There's a lot of really cool tools available technology-wise to do. Evernote, anybody ever use Evernote themselves? A few people use Evernote. I'll show you Evernote. Evernote is a note-taking tool that I've been using for several years now. And I have signed in. I think it signed me out. This is where you hope you use the right username. Oops. I will not use Mr. Rodgers as a username, just so we get that straight. All right. Well, it's just, Evernote is a note-taking tool. And some of you may be familiar with Classroom Instruction That Works by Robert Marzano. I don't know if any of your schools have used this book. This was something that our district has adopted. And what he did is a meta-analysis of all these different strategies that teachers use and the research that's been done on them to find the things that were most effective. And one of the ones he listed right at the top was, if you teach kids the strategy of summarizing and note-taking, it has one of the highest return or bangs for the buck in terms of the way it improves their overall achievement. If they have the ability to summarize and take notes, they're going to get higher test scores. That's a good thing, isn't it? Well, Evernote is a tool that lets people, it's a note-taking tool. It'll organize them for you. There's apps for Android, apps for the iPhones, apps for the iPads. I've used Evernote for quite a few years to do things. I've gone to these meetings where you'll get all these little handouts, and I will take pictures of them or even take pictures of a presenter's screen, put them in a notebook about that presentation or that class. I can mark up those notes and things like that, and then or add my own notes to it by typing them out. But it's just it's a very nice organizational tool. If you teach your kids in middle school or high school how to use something like this, by the time they get to college, they're well equipped. They're going to be well equipped for, organizing their studies and their scholarly pursuits and their, all that material that comes their way once they start college. So, what's that? Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you can. Dave was bringing up you can drop web pages into Evernote. So if you want to remember a page, take it, or as a reference in another thing, or if you want to add notes about that page or something, you can actually add that to it as well. You can add voice memos to it. It's got a lot of different capabilities besides just typing out notes, but it's a very valuable study tool.
Is that free?
Yes, it is free. Good question. I bring up Wikispaces here because I know a lot of you are already familiar with Wikispaces, but one of the things that people kind of neglect sometimes on Wikispaces that's at this second level of Bloom's is the discussion ability. One of the things that, like I said, I'm working on my doctorate, and I have to do these collaborative projects sometimes, and one of the things that is common in these is, we'll set up a wiki for our group to work on it. And the final product, a lot of that will be displayed on the front pages. But if you really want to see the thinking that was behind all of it, you go to the discussion tab on the wiki, and then you can see, there's been a lot, there was a lot that went on, a lot of negotiation, a lot of correction, and asking clarifying questions and things like that. And if you've never seen that, by the way, I'll show you this. We're going to look up quantum physics. And no, I don't understand it, but I know how to look it up. And I also know how to go to Wikipedia. And here's Wikipedia. And there's all of this great information about quantum physics. Here that uses big words and numbers that, any high school physics teachers in here? I'm impressed because you guys speak a whole other language. Our science director for our district is a former, AP physics teacher and stuff, and he gets going on these things sometimes, and I just walk out of the room. But he is extremely smart. Here is what I want to show. Let's see if I can get to. They've changed their. Okay. Where is my comments? They've changed their form. Oh, here it is. Read, edit. Oh, here it is. Discussion at the top. Now, this is where you can see where people with really bigger brains than myself got in here and started hashing out quantum physics. Rationalists beware. You rationalists, for every endeavor there is an art and science. Quantum mechanics is the art of quantum theory, while quantum physics is the science of quantum theory. Quantum mechanics has many uses, but is primarily limited to thought experimentation and wowing potential investors. Causality is dismissed within quantum mechanics. What a luxury! Isn't it? Okay. All right, so, but what happens is then one person will post something, somebody else will post something else, and they'll get the discussions. If you've never looked at that on Wikipedia, that's where you can really see how did that page get to where it is now, and it's through a lot of back and forth between the people that are editing those pages. By the way, this is a little geek barometer. How many of you have ever edited a page on Wikipedia? salute you. That is great. That's fantastic. I have too, but you know, it's fun. And it's also a worthwhile exercise for kids if they know something about, for example, maybe it's just about your school or your town, but they can go on and add some content to it. All right, some other ones that are on here. Chatsy is a free chat. You can set up free private chat rooms, which are a nice way to, you know, to have discussions in a safe environment. I put Glogster on here because when you talk about things like report, Glogster is actually a beautiful way. Glogster can be at different levels of this, but a lot of you I know are familiar with Glogster. I think I have that one open. Yeah. Glogster lets you create digital posters if you've never done it before. Now, I do want to give this little disclaimer to Glogster. They've recently changed their plans, and they used to give all these nice free things where you could set up your classes, and now they're charging for it. It's not expensive if you want to set up a class for 50 kids so you can monitor all their blogs and control their accounts and stuff. It's like $25 a year, $24.95, something like that. So it's reasonable. It's sad because, I mean, it's just economic realities. Two years ago, if you signed up for a Glogster EDU account, they would give you a free classroom. You could have 200 free student accounts, and then they cut it to 100, then they cut it to 50. So, but it's still a phenomenal tool for turning a basic report into something that's multimedia, multisensory, and certainly more enjoyable, has social elements to it. Takes a second to load here. While that's loading, we'll talk about Edmodo, which is another one on that list. And Edmodo is, so now I'm sure how many of you are using Edmodo? I'm sure we've got a few in here that are using Edmodo with your kids. I did see a few. Edmodo lets you set up walled garden type of little social networks for your classes. Okay? If you are interested in having an online presence for your class that's maybe or turn it into a blended classroom, which just means that you do some of your teaching and learning online and some in person. Edmodo's a great tool. They have, in fact, now they even have they do free school domains, so you can set up. It could be mountpleasantisd.edmodo.com. People would go through that URL to get to your class, but the way it works is they have to have a code to join your class. You are in control of that code. You give it to them. You say, go to Edmodo, register, and then join my class. Once you're in the class, you get to things like, yes, I'm Mr. Rodgers there, but that's because I'm teacher man there, okay? All right, for example, you can do, it actually bears quite a resemblance to Facebook. But you can do things like post discussions, you could share a video, you could share a handout, something that you wanted them to read. It has polls built in, so you can conduct polls. And it even has a gradebook built in, so you can actually do assignments and put them in a gradebook there. But at this second level of Blooms, what we're talking about is really facilitating all these discussions and collaboration, between classmates on ideas. So it's a very nice tool, free, easy to use. It has features like you can give the parents the code. If they sign up as a parent, they can see like what their kid's up to, and so they can't like post on it, but they can at least get in there and be informed observers, which they like. So that's Edmodo, and there's an Edmodo app as well. There's an app for that. There's for everything, I think. All right, let me get back here. Here's one. Again, this is Glogster. This is a report somebody did on the moon, and look at all the. They've included a Wordle. They've included videos. I if you click on different elements, you will get, let's see, here's a video of the moon landing, I suppose. I'm not going to sit there and wait on that to load, but you can see all the different elements. Again, this can be at higher and higher levels depending on the expectations of the teacher and what's required on the blog, but even as a basic report, it's a pretty powerful tool. It again has the social elements that people can comment and ask questions and things like that. You can set that up where only people, you can set it up where it's private, you share the link, only people that have that link are able to comment, stuff like that. You can moderate comments. It's got a lot of, safety tools built into it. Get through some of these. Okay. MindMeister is what it is. It's a mind mapping tool, and it's got a collaborative feature, so you can create collaborative mind maps to, organize your ideas, your thoughts and ideas, take notes, stuff like that. All right, let's go to the next level. Applying. Well, what are some verbs that work at applying? Choose, demonstrate, dramatize, employ, illustrate, interpret, operate, schedule, sketch, solve, use, and write. Here's some recommended technologies for that. Glyphy is a tool that lets you, so you go to it, there we go, create, it does a lot of things. You can create mind maps and things like that. You create flowcharts. It's a really nice flowchart creation tool. So if you're expecting your kids to be able to detail the steps of a process or of an event or something like that, a flowchart is one way that probably doesn't get enough love these days. Did anybody ever have to make flowcharts when they were in school? I don't ever hear that really done anymore, do you? I mean, very rarely. But it's a good graphic way to illustrate the steps of a process, right? And you can see the editor here, and they've got things like you can say, I want to make a Venn diagram. If I just say blank, you just drag on the tools that you want. Add the content that you need to it, drag on other tools, and so on, so you can make real easy flowcharts. Okay. That's Glyphy. Another one that was in this category is Go Animate. Notice it said dramatize, I believe. Yeah, dramatize was one of the ones in this third category. Go Animate last spring came out with a version that was just for teachers and schools called Go Animate for Schools. And if you've never used Go Animate, it's a tool that lets you create animated stories and things like that. Now, some of you may also be familiar with another one called Extra Normal. And Extra Normal I liked a lot, and I used it because it had text-to-speech, which I thought was really, you could have these English accents and stuff with the text. It wasn't just robot voice. It was pretty cool. And it was a lot of fun to play with, and you can animate your characters, make them have gestures and things like that. You still can. They just changed their pricing structure. They used to give you a lot of features for free. Now they give you this much for free. It's still a useful tool, but not as exciting as it was. Go Animate for Schools gives you a whole lot more. And show you what one looks like just so you can see. Here's one somebody did on global warming. I haven't previewed this. Just roll the dice. Hopefully, I mean, I think a kid made it, so it could be really impressive or really not. We'll see. Depends on, their teacher, what they expected of them, I guess, before they published. Justin Eames created this video. Good job, Justin. All right, I'll stop it. Good, I picked a good one. Woo! All right. That's very entertaining, actually, and he's going to get some good concepts in there. Really neat tool. There's all kinds of backgrounds and settings. There's props. There's different characters that you can use. You can add audio to it as well. They did not do that, but he's just using speech bubbles, which is fine as well. But a really nice way to dramatize something. Another one that I listed on this, and I would say it probably falls in the category of, it could be illustrate, it could be demonstrate, something like that, is these two that are called scribble maps and quick maps. Tons of things that we cover, especially in social studies or in literature and things like that, or even in science, you can map. Creating a map to reproduce the activity is a good activity. One of them that, got too many going on here. Quick Maps is one that lets you just draw on Google. So it uses Google Maps. Maybe you're going to illustrate, I don't know, Santa Ana coming up, his advance through Texas, all the way, through Goliad and Alamo and to San Jacinto. And you can add things like text to it. You can add arrows, obviously illustrating the paths and stuff like that. Both of those two map tools allow you to do that. You can see you have map markers here. There are draw modes. And wow, surprisingly, it starts us off in Texas. Isn't that nice? Obviously, this is a quality product. And so, if you wanted to say, Santa Ana was coming up this way, and then he went over here somewhere, and then he came back over here, or I don't know. And then we had the Alamo, and you can mark significant places like that, so on, and write descriptions for them. See, title, info, description. Okay? And what you can do, you can embed it, you can save it and generate a code so that it can be embedded in your site. I believe if you have an account, which is free, you can just save it as a link, just a plain old link, and so people could go view it as a link as well. And pretty easy interface. Get rid of a couple of these. All right, I mentioned Google Docs being on here. Google Docs can be, it could probably be listed on any one of these categories because there's applications that would allow it to do anything. But one of the ones, Google Docs, one of the ones that it has on here is Sketch. Google Docs has a sketch tool. Now, if you've never noticed that, it's even like if you go in to create a Word document, you can say insert a drawing. It pops up a whole separate window with drawing tools. There's shapes. You could use it for the flow charts and things like that. You could use it to freehand sketch things. So it's a really nice, capable drawing tool. And then they can embed those within a Google document or a Google presentation or something like that. Google Docs, I was a big fan when it first came out, but it's just gotten better because they just keep adding feature after feature. So definitely something that would fit in any of these levels of blooms. The next step is analyzing. I know y'all are dazzled at my finger drawing ability. Come on, you can. The iPad. Boy, those drawing apps in the iPad. I probably have 15 of them, different ones. It's a sickness. But what's really bad is I have these friends like on Google Plus. There's this one guy, and he's always posting his artwork that he did on his iPad, and it looks like a professional artist did it. It's just intricate details. I'm like, huh? You gotta have like the pointiest finger ever. I don't know how he does that. It really makes me feel insecure about my artwork. All right. Appraise, compare, contrast, criticize, differentiate, discriminate, distinguish, examine, experiment, question, and test. Those are verbs. Again, we're at a higher level now. And here's some tools. One of them that I wanted to share is called Coaster Creator. And there's a lot of these. This one's by the Jason Project, which is funded with the National Geographic Foundation and so on. They have a Coaster Creator that lets you apply physics teachers. They let you apply physics knowledge. You have to understand force and mass and acceleration and all these kinds of ratios to design a roller coaster that will be successful and where the riders don't experience something really unfortunate. I just have a hard time getting mine all the way up the first hill, so they never really experiencing anything unfortunate except disappointment on mine. But it opens in a pop-up window. It lets you design the coaster, how you want it to look and the colors and things like that. And then you get to add the elements to it. It gives you a lot of physics-related mathematical feedback on your roller coaster. The forces, like the potential energy that's building up, the G's that are being generated, the acceleration rates and things like that. But again, that's a pretty high level of analysis that you have to understand if you're going to not just guess your way through it. If you're like me, what ends up happening is you just guess your way through it until the people survive the roller coaster and didn't get to do the loop because it just wouldn't work. But at least they got to go up and down a hill, and you were very disappointed and yet proud at the same time. You just say build a roller coaster.
Cars a unique look. Choose the car's shape and colors. Adding cars increases mass, and therefore the total energy in your system. Subtracting cars will decrease the total energy in your system.
Okay, so you got the mass up here, the potential energy, and so on. It's, and here in a minute what's going to happen is you have to start designing it.
Click on the nodes to construct your track. Add hills. Build an initial hill to introduce energy into your system.
Now, just a warning.
Add enough loops and hills so that your coaster dissipates the energy as thermal and sound energy in time for it to stop.
I'm going to make that hill a lot bigger. You want it to be fast. And we'll go here. I know it's flat, thank you. Did somebody just say, oh my God, like they questioned my engineering abilities here. Oh yeah, well I'm just going to throw a loop in for that. And I can, whoops, I don't want to do a double loop. But I can, there's a way I can make it, remember how you can do it, you can actually make it wide, there we go. It used to be a bigger loop, obviously. And let's get and let's see. Physics teacher, am I going to make it very calculated? Uh-oh, we're in trouble. Yeah! stupid webpage. Golly, that's the closest ever. All right. I've got some more on here. I mentioned MindMeister earlier and Bubble Us. Both of those are ones that allow you to create semantic webs, mind maps. Okay. Google Finance. There's a lot of analysis that can be done of statistical data. Google Finance, what it does is it's a page that breaks down the markets. And as teachers, with something we're really familiar with because we have all this money we're investing in everything. So we need to know how to do that anyway. But our kids, for math classes, especially some higher level math classes, it's got some valuable potential there. Google Earth, and I keep going back to the verbs so I can remember which ones I was associating with. Compare and contrast is what I was looking at with Google Earth. One of the things that you may not be aware of in Google Earth, by the way, you know where that is? They're looking at us. That's the service center. Somebody's breaking in your truck, David. One of the tools on Google Earth you may not be familiar with is right up here. There's this little button that says Show Historical Imagery. And you can, with just the slide of this bar, compare how a place looked in the past. Now, it's not that exciting here, although you can see, this is 2 years ago. It says January 30th. That's my birthday. See if I can take notes. 2009, of course, when I turned 30. And there was water in the pond back there then. So we know it's not recent. But if I go back with the timeline, here it is in 2005. Look how green. That was the year they had rain, obviously. And that was in October, so January makes sense that it was brown. Notice the difference here and there in terms of there's a building there that wasn't there before. And then if you go back here even farther, the satellite photos start being black and white, but you can see, whoops, there was nothing here. And they have obviously expanded the service center. Right? And you go back all the way back to here. But anyway, that one's kind of boring, and you can't do a whole lot of comparing and contrasting there, but there's some really significant things. For example, a couple of years ago, after the Haitian earthquake, there's no shortage of satellite images on Haiti that you can get. You can go on, and your kids could examine. I could locate the presidential palace and see the damage to the presidential palace. See the before and after. You can see the tent cities that sprang up in the aftermath of the earthquake, a lot of which are still there. So anyway, that's a good way to use Google Earth that you may not have been aware of. Again, I mentioned Google Docs and everything. I'm throwing Wordle up here because really, do you know Wordle is one of its most powerful tools is when it's used to analyze things. I see all the time Wordle. Everybody's fascinated with Wordle because it looks cool. I've seen people decorating their house with Wordles. Don't laugh. You know that there's somebody sitting next to you that might be not enjoying that laughter. No, I really have. They'll do it real pretty. Put it in a frame, and they'll have words that describe, family, love, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff, Cut that part out in case my wife sees this, Stuart, the blah, blah, blah part, deeply meaningful stuff like that. And cut out the whole idea. I don't want to see Wordles on my wall, that whole part. But what Wordle is really most useful for to me is to analyze a piece of writing or multiple pieces of writing, to find trends, to find themes, and things like that, okay? So what you do, and some of you may have seen this done before, there's some people that have gone through, for example, presidential addresses, inaugural addresses, and run them through Wordle. to see what words were the key, represent key issues or key platform point positions that the presidents took at that time. And that's really revealing. If you look at Abraham Lincoln's inaugural address and compare it to FDR's, you get a totally different picture of what's going on in the world at the time. It works with a student's piece of writing. They can also see things like, as an English teacher, you have the ability to show kids firsthand. You know how I tell you use the word great too often or awesome? Look, it's this big on your Wordle. But it is an analysis tool, okay, for writing. And the next to last stage of Bloom's is evaluating. Appraise, argue, defend, judge, select, support, value, evaluate. And here's some sites I put up here. We could do more. A lot of you, yeah, gotcha. A lot of you are familiar with Rubistar. Yes? Anybody used Rubistar before? Okay, wonderful tool. Rubistar really is. Lets you create custom rubrics. You can also browse other people's rubrics. You just simply say, create a rubric. You tell it what type of product it's going to be for. Maybe my kids are doing, these are ones that are customizable if you want to pick one that's customizable. So let's say it's going to be a lab report. And then I just put all the different information here, my name, the name of the lab report. I come down here and I can add categories, such as materials. And it automatically fills in the criteria for them. These are editable. I can go in and take out, I can change what they say. But it's a really fast tool for creating rubrics. One of the criticisms that people have had for years about rubrics, I've never heard anybody really critical of their usefulness or the amount of feedback they give students and things like that. It's just creating them is a pain. But Rubistar really makes it a lot easier. Another tool that does that I listed on here is called iRubric. And that's actually part of a suite of things called, I believe it's called R Classroom. Let me make sure I tell you that the right thing. If you look up iRubric, you'll... Yeah, R Campus, that's what it is. And R Campus is a site that you can even set up a free online class. It's got a gradebook feature. You can do discussion forums and assignments that are similar to any of you that have ever taken an online class. You would recognize. It's a lot like Moodle even, or something like that. But that's the rubric part of it is part of R Campus. Another one for evaluating that I put on here is called Solver. And I could say, I need time to work on my paper, whatever. And click Start. Now, come on. Once you click Start, what it does is it gives you a link that then you can share with other people. The idea is that they will give you feedback. Feedback that can be commented on by other people to help you solve a problem. Okay? You could throw out an idea. I think I'm going to do this as my final project for my social studies class, blah, blah, blah. What do you think? And then people could give input. Well, why don't you add this? Or that's a terrible idea. Or that's a fantastic idea. Things like that. Okay. So it's a feedback tool. I didn't have to sign up for anything. There's not a lot of pretty graphics. But what happens is I share this link at the top, and it's just solver.freshbrain.com/d. Sign up. It's up there. It's hard for y'all to see, I know, but any of you could then go and click. Oh, well, I'm going to add an entry. Didn't do it. Just good feedback. But I could come and respond to them. know, too busy. All right, you get the idea. It's just that's all it is. But it's a good tool for evaluating decisions and ideas, because you throw out the decision or the idea and let people say, not so much. If you have really smart aleck friends like almost all of mine, you get what you ask for, but hopefully you have a few sprinkled in there that will take it seriously just for a minute. Real easy to use tool. That's a.freshbrain.com/solver. All right, another one that I put on there is SurveyMonkey. A lot of you are familiar with SurveyMonkey and have been using it for years. SurveyMonkey is a useful tool even for you or your students to collect data. I would put it in the same, I put another one in the same category, and that's the Forms tool on Google Documents. Any of you use that? You should teach your kids how to use it. If they need to collect data from other students or from family members or the neighborhood or whatever, it's a great tool for doing something like that. They just create a form, email everybody the link, and they can put their information on there, and then the kids can analyze the data. All right, and we're going to get to the highest level, and that is creating. This is my favorite level. I've always wanted to be an artist as a kid. See, it didn't work out on the iPad, but here's some of the verbs that go along with that: assemble, construct, create, design, develop, formulate, and write. And I've listed a few things here, and I'm not going to show them all, but I'll kind of explain what some of them are. MugTug is just an online drawing tool that's real user-friendly, real easy to learn. Even for elementary kids, they would have no trouble. Heck, most of these, if your elementary kids are like the ones that live in my house, they pick it up faster than their dad. Pixlr, Photoshop is an incredible tool. And by the way, Photoshop.com I could have put on there as well. Pixlr is a lot like Photoshop, except it's online and it's free, which, if you've ever priced Photoshop, you know that's a really big difference. Doesn't have all the features by any stretch, but if you're familiar with Photoshop, it does layers, a lot of the blending tools, a lot of the tools that are a lot like Photoshop. And you don't have to have an account or anything. You can open up the editor, load your photo, do your editing, or create your original thing, and then just save it to your disk. That's it. We were talking about a media tech program in our district. She was looking at her budget for money to buy Photoshop, and I showed her this, and she was like, I'm not buying Photoshop. So it's really a good quality thing. Google SketchUp is a 3D graphic design program. I can't vouch for a while, TCA was even giving away free pro accounts. I was going to say, it's worth checking to see if they still do it.
Email me, dphillips@prairieland.net.
dphillips@prairieland.net. He can get you the code so that you can get the pro version of Google SketchUp for free. And phenomenal tool. I mean, you apply, when you're using graphic design on something like SketchUp, you're applying science knowledge in terms of physics. You're applying tons of math. I always heard that trig could be used somewhere. I know geometry could be used there, but I think you might even could use trig there. No? Calculus? Calculus. How about calculus? Maybe calculus. All right. But a couple of them I want to show you really quickly. And then we're gonna wrap it up. This is called Homestyler. And this is a design tool that lets you do things like you just click and drag, and I can design things like a room. I could give the kids an assignment such as, I want you to design an energy-efficient classroom. They can add, there's all kinds of elements they can add to it. Boy. And I need a wall opening here so people can get in and out of the room. There's different categories. I can say I want to go to Windows, add windows to it. And what's really, really, really cool is, as it's taking its time to load, they have you can say, well, let's view that in 3D. Ah, now isn't that cool? All right. So you can do some pretty high-end stuff. And again, I'll get to a later point in a minute. Kiss Tunes is one where you can go online. It has a virtual keyboard that you can play by clicking on the keys like, or by, now one lesson, okay? I can't, I'm losing, okay. You can record your tunes on there and download them if you have an account and stuff. So again, have kids create original works of music. And one more I want to put on there. If you're not familiar with KidBlog, kidblog.org is a phenomenal site for getting your kids, especially your elementary kids, writing and publishing their writing online where they can share with one another, comment with one another, the parents can comment on stuff, and it's in a protected environment that's controlled by you. You create all the accounts. You don't have to have email addresses for all the kids, which is nice, right? And so keep that one in mind. Now, I'm going to skip, you're going to get to skip the quiz because we're about out of time, but I just want to remind you this. All of these tools, I mean, there's so many awesome technologies, but the point of all of this, the learning spectrum, the technology and learning spectrum, and the Bloom's taxonomy is, all of this technology is only as good as the plan, the pedagogy that we put into it, okay, what we expect out of our kids. So, as I leave you, what I would do is just challenge you to ramp it up a notch, expect your kids to do higher level things with their technology, you know, equip them to do that. And the last bit of good advice I have is, I work with a lot of teachers in our district and out of district that kind of are fearful to use technology. And one of the things I remind them to do is you've got a bunch of experts in your room. Use them, give up ownership every now and then. You'll be surprised at the results and amazed. And I do, I don't think, well, let's get to this real, see what you guys, well, did I lose my, oh, I'm not, yeah, oh, here it is. If you want to get in there later, we'll check the results about the discussions. I'll be interested to see students working in groups to create a PowerPoint. Would that be at the literacy adapting or transforming stage? And then using that home styler tool I just showed you, at what level of Bloom's would that be? Here's some questions. Some audience questions. 8 people bumped this one up. Can't get on the internet on iPads, only cell phones. Can we fix that? That here? Yeah, we'll address that. Thank y'all for the time today. I enjoyed talking to y'all. And